Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Mark and I thank you so much for coming by today. I am so excited because here in New England, spring is back. Yes, spring is finally here. After a long, cold winter, which we thought was never going to end, spring is finally back and it is gorgeous outside. The sun is shining bright, as you can kind of see on my forehead here, and I can't wait to get outside and get that fresh air in my lungs and start cleaning up the yard and getting back into the swing of life again. Spring is a time for rejuvenation, and that's one of the things I want to get into with this video. But I was flipping through this the other day and just taking a look at some of the older work that I did when I was younger, and it was a really learning experience for me to go through and see all this old work. But what it reminded me of was a period in my artistic journey called my unlearning phase. And what unlearning is, I'll get into later in the video. One of the things I also want to show you is this is one of the sketchbooks that survived that purge, and I'll be using this today to do some demonstrations. I've got my coffee cup here, so I want to jump right into this video. Ooh, that was pretty interesting how bright it just got. It's spring. I love spring. So come on, let's just jump into this video and how it might benefit you. And I hope you enjoy this. So come on along and let's jump right in. The first part of the video is going to be about learning. So this is part one, learning. And what I'm doing here is, that's my mugshot up there. What I'm going to do first is a quick self-portrait. Now this is not going to look exactly like me, so forgive me for not getting the exactness down. This is going to be a 5 to 10 minute quick self-portrait. So I'm just going to sketch out this self-portrait so you can see the learning part and what a normal drawing looks like, or a normal sketch, when you're just trying to get down the shapes and get down the likeness. And this is just the beginning part. The second part of the video is going to be the unlearning phase, and that's what we'll get into there. So the first thing I want to talk about is one of my favorite movie quotes, and that comes from the film Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, and the scene where Luke Skywalker, who's learning to use the Force to move rocks around, gets really frustrated when Yoda asks him to move a ship out of a swamp. He feels the task is beyond his ability and he sees no way to do it. "I can't do it," he tells Yoda, who replies annoyed, "Always cannot with this one." And so Yoda explains that his ability to achieve what he wants is all in his mind, and that to succeed, Luke must unlearn what he has learned. It's a powerful concept, despite being a little bit confusing. But funny enough, it's a concept that actually predates Star Wars by about 60 years. It was one of the primary teaching methodologies of the Bauhaus School of Art and Design in Germany in 1919. Now for me, the quote made perfect sense, just not when Yoda said it. See, 10 years after that film came out, the same quote was spoken to me by one of my college professors. One rainy afternoon, my professor, who I'll call Paul, asked me to stay after class. I was concerned I'd done something wrong, but he assured me everything was fine. We talked about art, his work, and what having a career in art meant. He asked me what I saw for my own future in art. He then told me that he really liked my work and what I was doing, but that I needed to make some changes. He explained that the work I was doing was by the book, and I was following my own expectations and what other people wanted to see from me, like my other teachers. Now, Paul wasn't an illustration or design teacher. He was a fine art drawing and painting instructor, and someone who I had great respect for. He told me, if I really want to grow and develop as an artist and put meaning to my work, and truly understand what being an artist is all about, then I would have to unlearn everything I'd learned about drawing and start again, from scratch. I had to relearn how to draw all over again. Now this was 30 years ago. It still seems like yesterday to me. I can even see the classroom, the lights off, the other students gone, rain was hitting the window, and Paul was sitting on the corner of a table that was covered in old paint splotches. He continued to elaborate on his thoughts, and it was clear by his smile and his enthusiasm he was giving me something very valuable, his wisdom. Still, I had spent my entire life learning how to draw. I was in art school and I was faced with this bizarre information. But when your art teacher tells you that you need to unlearn everything you know about drawing, you're really left with just two options to react. You can politely say thank you and move on, unchanged, or you can take up the challenge and go back to start and see what happens. Well, I did say thank you, but I took the challenge on also to see what this unlearning thing was all about. I thought it would be easy, but I was actually quite wrong. I hadn't figured on hurdles, and the biggest hurdles were actually my overconfidence and my own arrogance. After all, I was doing well in school, I was getting freelance work on the side, I was having small gallery shows, and I even won a few competitions. How hard could this be? Well, it was, and I won't lie, my work suffered, and it suffered horribly. My teachers immediately noticed the change in my direction, and they didn't like it. It reflected in my attitude. I would get frustrated, and I didn't really understand why I was doing this. So I went back to Paul, and I told him, I can't do this. He smirked and he said, ugh, young people, even when you're on the verge of a breakthrough, you still say the word can't. I seriously felt like I was Luke Skywalker talking to Yoda. And like Yoda, he explained to me that my problem was all in my mind and I just needed to free myself of rules and expectations, to remove boundaries and step outside what I knew and forge a new path that didn't exist yet. I just needed to let go. So I went back and tried again. After months of trying and not really noticing results, another of my teachers told me he was concerned about my work and that it wasn't the best he'd seen. In fact, he said it looked like I was drawing like a child. And that's when I realized I was making my breakthrough. Suddenly, I started to see the change in everything I was doing, from how I was drawing, to how I played my guitar, to the way I set my studio up, and even the food I was eating. I was going back to basics, keeping everything simple and purging things that had become burdensome. I got rid of books and music albums. I even got rid of old artwork, which I was hanging on to for the sake of nostalgia. It wasn't long until the process was fully realized and I was actually drawing like a child, ignoring perspective and proportion, scribbling and doodling, and coloring with random colors outside the lines with no sense of color theory. When I would draw, I felt like I was 5 years old again. I can honestly say it was the most liberating experience in my entire creative journey. I felt like I was no longer hung up on details, I didn't take color seriously, and I was not striving for perfection. I was having fun being messy, and I was just enjoying being creative. On my vacations, I began doing whimsical doodles of the places I'd visit, really fast sketches, really quick drawings, in these loose, very linear designs. I'd sit in coffee shops doing urban sketching before anyone called it that. It was an absolutely wild ride. And after about a year, I began to reintroduce some of my older habits of drawing from years before. I finally began to see an entirely new style and a whole new way of working that was a complete departure from the way I was working before, especially in airbrush. Not only did my way of creating change, but my entire perspective had changed, and for the better. But the question remains for today's conversation. What exactly is unlearning, and what are the benefits of it? Well, let's get into that part of the video, part 2, right after this coffee break. Now, in part 2 of the discussion, Unlearning, I'm going to try and go back to the start of the self-portrait and approach it without any sense of rules or foundations of drawing. And while it may look easy, trust me, it's not. You'll see that I'm going to have to do several drawings to try and unlearn things I know about drawing, except those things are really deep-rooted and I have to find a way to get beyond them. So it's going to take several attempts to reach that zone and fully immerse into this new drawing, letting it flow and completely letting go and allowing the drawing to happen without thinking. But what exactly is unlearning? In my terms, unlearning is when information that we've acquired no longer serves a purpose and can be dismissed. When all ideas and approaches to solving a problem or performing a task have been thoroughly exhausted. For me, it's like going down a path to find a fork in the road. We go to the right way on the path to find along the journey that the right way is blocked. No matter how hard we try to get around, passage is not possible. So we have to go all the way back to the fork in the road and then go to the left this time toward our destination. Unlearning is when we dismiss the information about the right-hand path that leads to the obstacle because it's now irrelevant and not needed. We had to go all the way back, unlearn that information, and now learn new information about the direction to the left. For whatever reason, my professor saw something in me that he felt that I would benefit from this unlearning, and I think he was right. So, what are the benefits of unlearning? Well, the ancient Chinese book of changes called the I Ching teaches us that when we put ourselves into action, good fortune will come. When we decide to make changes for ourselves to better our situation, success will follow. To me, that's perhaps the most important benefit of unlearning, that success and good fortune come through action and change. But more simply, there are several benefits to going back and starting from scratch in almost any field. The number one benefit? Happiness. The feeling of positive joy often accompanies the exploration of new interests, and when we explore an element of ourselves that leverages our innocence, that childlike discovery creates a sense of happiness in us. I'm sure there's plenty of chemical reactions going on in our brains, like dopamine or adrenaline, that contribute to this sense of joy. Number two, letting go. Whenever we unburden ourselves from mental roadblocks, frustration, or anxiety, there's a huge liberating sense of freedom. Letting go of things we don't need can help us free up strength we can use to pick up new things. Number three, courage. Trying new things we've never done before takes a certain amount of courage, especially when we know it won't be immediate and will take time. Unlearning takes courage to recognize that we're at a roadblock and we need to take action, start again, and find positive results. Number four, anti-laziness. Roadblocks can make us stop our progress and simply give up. When there seems to be no viable options left, we gravitate to things that keep us distracted. It's easier to quit than to go back to start and start all over again. Unlearning gives us the fortitude to focus, go back, and pursue an entirely new path, discarding the roadblocks that were holding us back. Number five, sharpens the mind. Much like doing a puzzle or a brain teaser, our brains are stimulated and rewarded when we find solutions and new ways of doing things. It's why video games and phone apps have become so popular. The reward for success or leveling up is immediate, but it also keeps the mind sharp and clear. Unlearning does the same thing by creating the same reward for success scenario, allowing us to stay fresh and keep our thinking sharp. Number six, playtime. In any field or discipline, when we get to explore something we're already familiar with, but with no rules, boundaries, or expectations, it usually comes with the excitement of a child. It's that experience of playing in a new sandbox, the season's first snowfall, or going to a new beach for the first time. Playtime is especially important to an artist who must constantly keep their mind and heart open to be able to explore their creative outlets. Number seven, organization. When we spend significant time trying to figure out how to do something, we tend to surround ourselves with clutter. For me, I have paintbrushes, coffee cups, pens, pencils, sketchbooks all around me. Once we recognize we've hit that roadblock, the frustration or annoyance can trigger us to react by organizing our space, cleaning up our stuff, and preparing ourselves to go back and start again. It's a very fulfilling experience to organize that workspace. Number eight, positive social influence. Expressing to colleagues, friends, or family, whether on social media or in person, that we're frustrated or we're feeling anxious or uptight because we're stuck on something that we just can't get past can have a negative effect on other people. However, if we express to them that we're going through a process of unlearning to go back, to start over and find a new way of doing something, it can have a positive effect on other people. It can even inspire and motivate them to adopt changes in their own routines. Number nine, experience. For me, it was an epiphany when I first chose to unlearn everything I had learned. It opened a channel for me to be able to think in a completely different way and release expectations that I had been placing on myself for years. Now, whenever I come across that road again, I can draw from that same experience and remember to let go of the information I've collected and start again, making room for new information. Once you have an experience with something, you can call on it more easily each time. Number 10, personal growth. It's ironic how unlearning what we learned, going back to start, and relearning all over again can actually allow for an incredible depth of personal growth. While it's not necessarily tangible, the change and experience are definitely something you feel when you go through it. So if you're finding yourself without a solid direction, stuck in a slump, or with artist block, or that your ideas just seem out of date, uninspired, or just plain uninteresting, I challenge you to ask yourself, are you willing to unlearn everything you know about drawing and go back to start to find a whole new approach to how you work? Or, if you're just starting out, do you have enough of an open mind that would allow you to give up the path you're on, recognize that it might not be where you want to be going, to start fresh and see things a little bit bit differently? Well, if the answer is yes, then I encourage everyone to keep on practicing and keep on working. And when you're ready to, consider the benefits of unlearning and see if maybe that's something for you. Well, I hope this video was helpful or got you to think a little bit differently about unlearning. And I'm grateful to everyone who has subscribed to this channel, and I look forward to bringing you more content like this. Thank you so much for watching today. Stay well and keep learning, and keep unlearning. Thanks again, take care, and God bless.